Welcome to Paradigms at paradigms.life. Hi, I'm Baruch, host of Paradigms. Welcome to the show. Paradigms' mission is to bring you inspiring people with visions of a viable future for life on Earth that includes humans. My guest in this episode is a wonderful musician. She's returning to the show. She's just released a new solo album. It's very powerful, and what she has to say is really meaningful. You know, we talk a lot on this show about the human condition, about what's happening on Earth with humanity. We talk about belief, we talk about behavior, we talk about inspiration. This artist is sharing a very personal journey of her own spiritual development, and the music is absolutely other dimensional, really. So let's meet her right now on this episode of Paradigms. Jo Beth Young, welcome back to Paradigms.
Thank you so much for having me again. It's a joy to be back. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. It's great to see you and to talk with you. So, Broken Spells, the album, it's out.
It is. It's finally released after several years in the making. But yeah, she's out there.
Wow. Well, let's talk about this music and your journey, because it's really been a journey for you. And it's such a evocative name, Broken Spells.
Yeah.
So tell me about the Broken Spells. We talked about this last year when you were still working on it, but now that it's out,
yes.
Tell me about what spells have been broken. And, you know, when you break a spell, you put something in its place. So
absolutely. Yeah, that's so true, actually. That's something no one's actually mentioned. Like when you break something, you clear something, something has to replace it because you've got a vacuum. And yeah, that's really poignant, actually. So the album, I've been working on it for about 3-4 years, and it was originally called The Book of Broken Spells. I kind of saw it like each song is a chapter, and that's definitely how it feels. Now it's done, it does feel like you're actually going through there's a progression to each song as it goes along. So the idea of Broken Spells really at the time when I started it was just sort of seeing what was going on in the world. It was just pre-lockdown, very, very pre-lockdown, and starting to notice the things I guess we don't question in everyday life that are perhaps spells, just things we accept as normal. So whether that's government policies or sort of legal restraints that we have on our life, or whether it's spiritual beliefs or it's beliefs we have about ourselves as people, these were all things I was starting to question in my own life at the time. So the songs are kind of a conversation with myself about these things in a way, but hopefully relevant and resonant for people as well.
I love that. I talk often with people about, you know, the inner conversation, which is the one that we have our whole lives. This being the primary relationship.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And things we can do to actually really foster and listen to that inner dialogue so that we can learn from it and make more conscious choices. So I love this.
Absolutely. And I think lockdown, you know, I wrote Burning before lockdown, you know, and then I realized afterwards it was really about what was about to happen. So it was quite a prescient track. But I think during lockdown, with the quietness around us, especially where I was living in the west of Ireland at the time, in a small village there, and it was so quiet. And I think it was a time where you got a chance to inwardly reflect because of the outward silence, the lack of distractions, the lack of busyness. And that's when my own life really started to change. I think that's when I started to question things and say, why haven't I ever looked at things this way before? Why have I been so afraid of exploring different ideas or philosophies? And also looking at my own personal life, like there was a pattern in my life that wasn't seeming to change no matter what I did. And I was starting to question even the ethics behind certain things I'd done without questioning them, and even in the world. So it sounds a bit heavy and a bit deep, but that was what was going on at the time.
I love heavy and deep. I live for heavy and deep. I mean, you know, because really, if we're not asking these questions, you know, these are the questions that are signs of growth.
Yeah.
And really, if you look at the whole of humanity, It's easy. Yes, as you say, we become very attached to beliefs,
Yeah.
ways of looking at the world, ways of seeing ourselves. And when all of that comes into question in a constructive way, not in a,
Yes.
just critical and dunning, but really
Yes.
asking and being willing to learn and see things differently. We all need to do that. The whole of humanity needs to kind of
Absolutely.
shift. And the other piece is when we are willing to question, then we get to understand that our personal truth is not necessarily everyone else's capital T truth, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's about curiosity. It's about childlike curiosity, because we get so set in our ways, and we don't question it. We might even think we're free. In fact, that was my realization. I had limited ideas that I thought were free, were creating freedom in my life, and then I realized they were creating bondage. It was actually the other way around. So a lot of this album is about that. It's about just it's understanding that there is, for me, spiritual warfare was real, something that I was very much against looking into. And I was a non-dualist. I was one of these really flexible spiritual people. I used to call myself a pro-non-ist. In other words, I don't believe in anything with an ist or an ism or an anity or any identity on the end of it. But I think what happened during lockdown is that I started to realize, wait a minute, there are boundaries. There are spiritual boundaries. There are energetic boundaries in life. And, maybe I haven't explored them because I thought they were repressive, but maybe they were protective. And so it sounds a bit abstract what I'm saying, but it was a real exploration of inward spiritual warfare, which is what adversity was about. That if we want to see, and I really do believe this, if we want to see an outward end to violence, we have to start inside. We can't have very extreme polarities going on that are painful and at war with ourselves. So these are all sort of things I was exploring at that time.
I'm talking with Jo Beth Young about her new album, Broken Spells. You've just heard some of what she has to say about the album. We're going to get into it a lot more and talk about some facets of the human experience. But first, of course, music. We're going to hear the song that Jo Beth was just talking about called Burning, and then we'll be back with more conversation. This is Jo Beth Young from her new record, Broken Spells. This is Paradigms at paradigms.life. burning. That's Jo Beth Young from her new record, Broken Spells. Just the name of the album tells you a lot, right? This is a person in a place of change. We're all changing all the time, but to embrace it is a powerful thing. Here's the next part of my conversation with Jo Beth Young. In whatever form, in whatever context, the issue is human violence. The issue is human cruelty. The stories that we tell to explain it or justify it or all of that ultimately is irrelevant. Absolutely. It's that human beings, we have many, many wonderful tendencies, but we do have this tendency towards violence. And when we're afraid, our clear thinking goes away and we act out. And so how do we get past that? And there are so many, I want to say, really wonderful, beautiful, freeing, oppressive, everything, belief systems. I mean, belief systems can be all of the above, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And so how do we, it's that bumper sticker, coexist. How do we coexist without agreement, but without killing each other? Yeah,
absolutely. And how do we see God in everyone, rather than having these very, either there's spiritual ideas that are binding and have bondage, and then there's the religious spirit, which is also binding and has bondage in it, and they can all foster ideas that there's an us and them. So when I was in the New Age, which I was in for many, many years, most of my life, in fact, was all sort of esoteric and New Age belief systems, there was still a separation. There was still a sense that you're either enlightened or you're not, or you're more wise than other people. You've attained something. Whatever it is, your vibration is higher. There's all these kind of funny sort of, you know what I mean, ideas. Spiritual materialism, absolutely. And then, of course, my journey was that I became a born-again Christian. And it has, to me, been the biggest freedom. It's the most freeing thing that's ever happened to me in my life. And that's been such a shock, because I thought that would be the worst thing that could possibly happen to me in life. So it was a total shock. But on the other hand, when I tell people that I'm a Christian and it's how it's freed me, they can find that hard to believe, because they might be looking at it from the religious aspect, and there is religious bondage of an us and them as well. But if you follow instead of my truth, if I follow the truth, which I personally believe is a person called Jesus. So if I put my twisted ideas of truth, which will start to create polarity, if I throw that to the back and follow him and his heart, then you start to see that this is inclusive of everyone, that everybody is loved by God. Everybody is a child of the Father, if you like. And that would be my language, my way of describing it. But all these things are to end the violence inside, because, as you say, there are so many beautiful people in this world. They are filled with light. They are filled with that wisdom and truth, but they're still subject to a battle that's going on around them. And so the album, in a way, was me realizing all of those things I've just told you, but looking at it from the perspective of politics, of war. These are all subjects I look at in the album, of narcissistic personalities and things like that cause abuse, of even just things I'd experienced in the music industry, which had a heart of darkness in it, and then self, and then looking at myself and saying, where have I betrayed myself? Where have I crossed my own boundaries? Because it's easy to look out there and go, that person betrayed me, that person hurt me, that person crossed my boundaries, and have a righteous wrath about that. But we don't often like to look at our own part in it.
What did we allow?
Yes, exactly. So there's a lot of that in this album as well. Like, hey, actually.
No, it's great. It's really great. In the US right now, Christianity is getting a really bad name because the front runners of it are extremists who are politically seeking to create more separation, and who are engaged actively in perpetrating acts of cruelty. And so for you to talk this way as a born-again Christian about inclusivity and peace and not exclusivity and war is refreshing.
Yeah. Well, that's great to hear, because I think, that's the thing that puts people off. And all spirituality has boundaries in it. It has to. And boundaries do exist. But I think it's seeing boundaries as love and safety rather than oppressive separation. That was the big misnomer and judgment that I had about it before the Lord came to me, and that all got blown apart, but it is something that, of course, in all spiritual walks there are places of violence. There are places where something that is true and good can be used to beat people with as well. So the album's got sort of themes around that in it, and it was my journey to that spiritual rebirth in my own life, really. But hopefully, listening to it, it's got elements that anyone can relate to about those battles that we go through.
I'm talking with Jo Beth Young about her new album, Broken Spells. Have you ever been in the place Jo Beth is talking about, where you're questioning your beliefs, you're questioning the way you see reality, and discovering different aspects of possibility for yourself and for your relationship with the world? Here's another song from Broken Spells. It's called Mechanical Ballerina.
These falls are falling, but I can live as though I can still keep walking. We're full of holes and empty goals. Who are we to call on to save us all? Yes, I've been above it all before, but I can't fake it anymore. You're not the only one who keeps on moving. 'Cause when you run, you're not falling. Without a key, pat yourself back
Mechanical Ballerina. That's Jo Beth Young from her new record, Broken Spells. And now here's the next part of my conversation with Jo Beth Young. Your vocal style is very unusual and extremely intense. It is,
Right.
and
That's brilliant.
I mean, people must have said that to you before or something along those lines. You are keening, you are wailing, you are celebrating. I mean, there's so much emotion in the way you express yourself when you sing.
Oh, thank you.
And then the words, which are coming from you, which you're singing with deep meaning, and then the musicianship. So it's a really potent piece of work to listen to. And, as you said, each song leads to the next. This is not background music. This is music to really perceive and let it kind of sift through you and see where it takes you. And so, yeah, wow.
Thank you so much. I think, and all the musicians that you've spoken to and you yourself must sort of go through that thing where you realize that as you're getting older and as you go from album to album or piece of work to piece of work, that you see yourself change as a person. And I would say in this album, I realized that I'd reached a confidence or a comfortableness with myself in a way that I think has come out in the vocal style, because I think there's quite a varied amount of vocal styles on this album. But I would also say there is war cries on there is laments on there is all kinds of things on. There's also jubilation and joy on there as well, so there's all kinds of emotions going on there. I'm just very lucky that I work with some incredible musicians that are very spontaneous and really good improvisers and who can follow an emotional map. So instead of saying to them, here's this song, it's these chords, this whatever, I can say to them, this is the emotional landscape of this song, and then they will play it. And Jules Bangs on bass, Peter Yates, who's just an absolutely mind-blowing musician. You give him something and he comes back with these so intricate, delicate tapestry parts put just in he might only put a bar of something somewhere. He's just got such an incredible mind to see the tapestry of every song and to know exactly where a stitch needs to be or something needs to be. So I just feel, that they are all very much part of this album. Matt Blackie, who helped me do the beats because it's much more electronic. I had Carrie Glynn, who's over in the States. He just wanted to work on Occam's Razor and he did some lovely events on that. And then some guys from the Abandoned Orchestra Band, like Jane Newton on keys. And of course, our lovely mutual friend, John Reed, who played on Bridget. And that was an amazing experience with John because, at the time when I made that song, it was lockdown. I think he couldn't use his studio at the time. I think it was in the middle of his move. I said, just record it on your phone. It's fine. So he just played, he played this like slide guitar and on his phone. And that's what you hear in Bridget. It's just John on his phone. So cool.
Which just goes to show you don't actually need all the bells and whistles to make great music.
No. And I mean, this is the other thing that's been really different about this album is I made nearly every part of this in my attic bedroom. There's no studios involved. Everybody recorded at home. Nobody recorded, Ben Roberts, who's such a virtuosic cello player, he was playing at home. You can hear all the background of everyone's home in a way. So the only studio time was some very brief time with Matt Blackie in Spain. So it's very handmade. And I also mixed half of it, which I'd never do normally. So that was a real challenge.
Yeah, mixing is so much fun.
It's so much fun. And so much insanity at the same time.
Because it's just a little more, no, a little less. No, now you have to change that one a little bit. It's just, but then when you get to where you want it to be, you can tell it's like, oh, that's it.
That's it. But you have to walk away. And that's the thing. I have got such OCD. I'm such a detail person. So I will stay up at night sweating over one little detail that I think's wrong. So I just had to be told in the end to walk away, What is it they say? That art is never finished. It just stops in an interesting place. That's a good philosophy if you can't walk away.
Here's the track that Jo Beth was talking about with guest musician John Reed. John's been on the show a number of times, and you can hear him on this song, Bridget, from the new record, Broken Spells. You're listening to Paradigms at paradigms.life. Bridget from Jo Beth Young's new album, Broken Spells. I just visited Bridget's Well in County Clare, Ireland. So the timing of this is, of course, wonderfully synchronistic. Jo Beth's new record is all about the transformation of the faith experience and whether one relates to the word faith through a religious construct or a personal spiritual construct, or through the idea of understanding how we live our lives, what we value as true or as important. Everyone has faith in something, or maybe has lost faith in something. Here's the next part of my conversation with Jo Beth Young. For those of us whose lives are relatively secure compared to the people who are being bombed right now.
Yes.
I mean, to be honest, for those of us who are not having those life-threatening experiences, I think part of what I learned by watching the horrors, honestly, is, and it's sort of cliche, but it's just not to sweat the small stuff so much. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
You know, we can stress over all these little things, but we don't have to.
No, and you're so right. And I think sometimes, you know, the kind of worry that we have is actually such a privilege. I remember reading this book some years back. Forgive me, I don't remember the name of it, but it was a book on forgiveness, and it was written by a survivor of a prisoner of war camp. And he talked about how when he was in the prisoner of war camp, how he couldn't worry because worry was a luxury that he remembered from his previous life, because there was no room in that. The mind is in such shock and terror of death that you don't even have the luxury of worrying. He said he used to miss the idea of worrying because that seemed like such a luxury. And yet we can worry about all kinds of things. And I've come to the conclusion that everyone's suffering in a strange way is equal, in the sense that what you think is the worst thing in the world to you, it's not really the worst thing in the world, but to you it is. It's the highest suffering you've had so far. And it's only when you realize, actually, look, I am actually really lucky. I do have food in my belly. I do have a roof over my head. I'm not in a war zone. I am actually privileged. I live in a good economy. I might not agree with things around me, but I'm still in a privileged position. And that just gives you some sort of elastic to stop going into the coil of anxiety about things. Well said. Well said. Absolutely. Wow. It makes me think about the most painful things that have happened in my life and how they have stretched my resiliency, as you say. Yeah. Exactly. And so when you've had this bad thing happen relative to other things, it makes the other things seem not so bad. But then when something really even more horrific happens, and really that we're really going into the realm of violence, then all those other things become so insignificant. Yes. You know, oh, the grocery store didn't have the thing I want. Yes. I mean, really? This is not a problem. You're like, I'm desperate for that again. Right. I'm desperate to see that again. The grocery store has nothing. Yes. And I can't get any food for my children. Yeah. That's a problem. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Baruch, you're so right. It's like we don't think of that. It's like we get so, you know, obsessed with our right to have choice, you know, like it's this absolute right I deserve. And that's a very toxic thing at times, you know. And then you think, well, how can that be true when you know in the world that people are going through all different layers of prosperity and poverty, of safety and unsafety, as you say. You know, everything is a gift. I don't say that in a cliche cornflake packet way. I mean, the very air you breathe is given to you by the grace of God, whether you think about it or not, you know, everything. And that does start to give you a lot more elastic in life. It's like, I'm still breathing. That's pretty brilliant. And no matter what your circumstance, no matter how dire, if it's possible to observe even the tiniest bit of beauty somewhere, yes, it makes a difference. Literally, that blade of grass coming up through the concrete, yes, that inspires. Yes. And that ability to be inspired is what has kept us going for all these millennia. Yeah. And is what still keeps us going. And it's the thing that may allow us
to get through the current iterations of whatever you want to call it, madness, violence, contradiction, whatever. If we can get back to really being in contact with the inspiration that life offers, I still, maybe I'm a fool, but I still believe humanity can make it into this place where we are really exploring our more positive potentials.
I believe it too. I don't think that it's silly at all. I think that's how we were designed, in fact. I think it's in our DNA to do that. I think there's books in our DNA that they don't understand, that they call them junk books of DNA. But I think in there is actually the solution. I think that the peace that we're looking for is in there. And I think what you said about those small moments, they're so important because, if you're feeling really awful and depressed or whatever's oppressing you, sometimes just forcing yourself out the door into the woods or by the sea and realizing that life is going on, that animals aren't stressing about, there's real comfort in nature when you see that the trees aren't having a panic attack, the grass isn't, do you know what I mean? It's like this life is actually very stable. It's only unstable in the human mind, really. It's to understand that and to get out of your mind in the best possible way, even if it seems to look out of your mind to other people. We have a joke, my fiance and I have a joke where we say, we're not out of our minds, we're just out of yours,
I love it.
Which is like, it's a better way to live, to not worry about that restriction.
We'll be back with the final part of my conversation with Jo Beth Young after we hear this song from her new album, Broken Spells. It's called Adversity.
Who should we follow? All the saints are dead. Feeding the low ground with the blood they bled. Adversity.
adversity, something we've all experienced, something we all get to work through. Sometimes it can feel like it's just bad things happening, and sometimes really terrible things are happening. But no matter our circumstance, there is this opportunity in adversity, even if it's insurmountable, to experience the depth of our own being. And when things are really hard, when you're suffering, when there are external forces causing harm, it's kind of hard to see that as an opportunity to deepen one's own sense of oneself. But it's there. All right, here's the final part of my conversation with Jo Beth Young. I'm happy for you that you have found a path that speaks to you so deeply.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm really happy for you. And you know, you're a person I care about in the world, so I'm happy to see you happy. And also, congratulations on meeting this person and moving into this relationship, which I know that wasn't happening for a long time. And
no, it's been amazing. Well, it's been another gift from God for sure, you know, in so many ways. We have a very unusual testimony I'll share one day. But yeah, it has for both of us been a total joy. So thank you so much, Baruch. That's so lovely for you to say.
Oh, well, you know, I have learned that being able to be happy for other people's joy is one of the greatest gifts in life.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
Because then it just exponentially multiplies the happiness, which we need.
Yes. And also, you know, I sometimes think about English culture. It's so different from American culture in the sense that I think the English can have a very hard time being happy for people. And I think it's really sad because I think when something beautiful happens, I always think it means it's possible for you too. It's like, if that's possible for one, it's possible for all. And that again comes back to what we were saying about the peaceful future that we can have, right? So I totally believe you. I think, you know, celebrating everything, because even that little, like you talked about, that little blade of grass that can change the way you see things, that is like a pinprick in the dark sometimes. And if you put your attention on it, it'll open up and up and up and up and up. It'll just widen. And that joy, you know, sometimes it's hard to feel happy for others or hard to feel happy for good things because we're in so much pain ourselves. But if we put our attention on it, it grows, right? What's good starts to grow.
Did you ever read the Carlos Castaneda books, the Don Juan books from the 60s and 70s?
I did, yeah. I lived in Glastonbury. When I was younger, I was a proper radical barefoot hippie. And I read all his books.
The thing that stuck with me from all those books that Don Juan said is, you know, you can be in El Mundo Bueno or El Mundo Mal, and you have a choice. And if you're in El Mundo Mal, if you're in the bad world, you just have to push yourself through that membrane into El Mundo Bueno, where the light is.
Absolutely.
And it sounds so easy, and it isn't necessarily, but it is a truth. I live with that. And I think that was really, that was really cool.
And it's what I love about that is it's a lot more powerful than like, oh, just positive thinking, or, you know, you can't do that when you're suffering. You know, you can't, the whole point is you can't change your mind in that moment, right? Because your mind is stuck in a loop, and it's like a total, you know, like helter-skelter that's just going down and down and down. So what he talks about there is like just seeing that there is an innate goodness to creation. There is an innate goodness. You know, we talk about, obviously, in my religion culture, we talk about the goodness of God, right? Because it is in everything. It is in everything. So if you go looking for it, you will find it. But not only that, it is looking for you. It's always, the goodness is always looking for you. Every single day of your life, you might not think it's there. You might not think it's coming. But if you reach out your hand for it, it grabs your hand back. And that is a beautiful thing.
How we focus and where we focus our attention is what we will be perceiving. And it's really, I love that. It's looking for you. It makes me think of a song. I don't know if you heard the Bonnie Raitt won Song of the Year a year ago on the Grammys for this beautiful song that she wrote called Just Like That. I encourage you to listen to it.
Oh, wow. No, I didn't.
It's an incredible song, but there is this one line in the song where it's written in the first person, and she's lost her son. And it's extreme. I can't get through the song without just weeping copiously. But there is this one line where she says, you know, they say Jesus brings you grace. Well, he hasn't found me yet.
Mhm.
And it's like, but then something happens in the song.
Yes, that's it.
And she finds, grace finds her.
Yes.
Through this person who comes to her. I won't give away the spoiler
Wow,
of the story of the
that's
song.
so beautiful.
But, you know, like when we get done, go to YouTube and listen to it. It's called Just Like That.
I
You
will
won't be
do.
You'll be blown away.
Wow.
But we really do have the power, even when it's very, very hard, even if it's just a little tiny bit, to shift a little bit how we're looking at things. And that in that moment, we change the world. And if we all do that together, we could literally change the way humanity exists on Earth.
100%. And that's it. That's what a change of mind can do. We are in a world of indoctrination, you know, so there are religions, if you like, that we don't even know about. And they're mindsets that we find really hard to get out of. So once we just go, actually, you know, and that was what happened with me. I was very indoctrinated, and I was more indoctrinated. I would say people probably think I'm indoctrinated now, but I feel so completely liberated from my indoctrination, which is the irony of it. But I had to just get out. I just had to push against that wall. And the minute you do that and you start to focus on, as you say, you're focusing on the garden now. And once you start focusing on the garden, you can start to plant nice things in it. You can start to foster it and grow it in a way that you can't if you're looking at the disaster, if you're just looking at the burnt earth, the scorched earth around you. You know, it's easier said than done, but that has been my experience, that goodness is looking for you. Grace is looking for you, you know.
Jo Beth Young, it was such a pleasure to talk with you again. I'm really glad we got to do this and appreciating our conversation so much. The music on this record, Broken Spells, is so mind-expanding, as we talked about the musicianship, the power in the lyrics, and what Jo Beth, what you do with your voice. This is one of the reasons I love music. It just takes me to these other places. And I really love the conversation we had. To me, that's kind of the big conversation. So thank you, Jo Beth. Folks, if you'd like to know more about Jo Beth Young, check out her other music, her music with Night Song, her other solo albums. Her website is jobethyoung.com, JOBETHYOUNG.com. Definitely check her out. Listen to her older music. You know, musicians are telling us their story. So you listen to the older music and then you listen to the newer music and you're experiencing their personal journey. So thank you, Jo Beth. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Paradigms and that you'll visit the Paradigms website, paradigms.life. Now that we're in our 16th year of shows, which is just amazing to me, there's such a body of work behind us. I think we're into episode 630 or something like that. So I hope you'll check all that out. And on the Paradigms website, at the bottom of the page, there's a link to my new audiobook, Khalil Gibran's The Prophet, narrated by Starhawk. A lot of love and intention went into that project, and I hope you'll check it out at theprophet.life. You know, sometimes on the show I go off about religion, and I have big issues with organized religion and the way it functions in the world. But spirituality, the personal experience we each have or can have with all of existence, which sounds awfully lofty, but that's really powerful for individuals. And as we allow ourselves or choose to be open to the very real connectedness we have with literally everything, that makes the world, you know, what I always say, a better place for everyone. I'm not talking about dogma or doctrine. I'm talking about the personal experience of taking in a breath and feeling your cells be alive, just like all the other life around us, the trees, the animals, the plants, the sea, the clouds, everything. You know, we are on this amazing planet, and we are made, all of us, of the same stuff as the planet. We are truly, really connected with everything. We are part of it all. Allowing oneself to experience that, not as an idea, but to experience it. Take a breath. It's real. It's far more real than anything you see on the screen or any idea someone is yelling about. All right, I'm going to leave you with one last song from Broken Spells by Jo Beth Young, and I hope you'll go listen to the whole record. But this one is called Wolf Song. And let's let the word for the week be interconnectedness. Let's feel our interconnectedness with everything and everyone around us. Notice it wherever you are, with your family, in the grocery store, walking in the woods. Breathe and feel your interconnectedness. All right. Baruch signing off for this episode of Paradigms. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next time with more inspiring people. Until then, let's feel how interconnected we all are. And be well.
Crying out at the winter's ledge, and he was the talk of the town. A wolf like, hold on me, howling dawn. Don't you cry for him. I've been here with him. Don't you cry for him. We've seen his kind before. Cause I know what it's like to be taken a night. A wolf can kill with just one bite and be saved by a kiss. Wasn't that such a pretty way to die? Don't be afraid to cry if you never see the daylight. I've seen it all before. That's why I say nothing anymore. They say, how can you be so cold at night? How can you breathe? How can you be so cold at night? I could never be as cold as you are to me. No, I can never be as cold as you are to me.
You've been listening to Paradigms at paradigms.life.